But we'll come back to that again. I'm trying to lean over the bridge here and hopefully not fall into the River Thames. Good afternoon, everybody. Sinead here in Victoria Park Gardens. I'm standing right behind the Houses of Parliament and I'm actually on Millbank. Now, right behind me, you will see the incredible Victoria Tower. And some of you may be familiar with these gardens. This is exactly where the thousands and thousands of people had queued up. And this was the end of the queue to see to pay their respects to the coffin of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II inside the Palace of Westminster. But the reason we're here today is I want to start a journey a bit down Millbank. One of the biggest questions I get asked all the time is where is MI5 and MI6? So that's exactly where we're going today. Then I want to take you to this pub, the Morpeth Arms. I'm not quite sure how they're going to feel about us filming in there, but I wanted to show you secret underground tunnels that were also connecting the Morpeth Arms to what was on the former site of the Tate, the Millbank Penitentiary. And then we're going to make our way to the American Embassy here in London. So yes, Donald Trump will feature as well. This is Spies, Prisons, Art, Presidents, Prime Ministers, Construction Bridges, Arts, the Sciences, Deportations, and Donald Trump. Stay tuned. So right now, ladies and gents, I'm technically standing on a little intersection here between Horseferry Road and right behind me is Lambeth Bridge. And this is the building in two parts, the massive neoclassical design building of MI5 in London. Now the MI5 building was originally Thames House and it was upgraded to a Grade 2 listed building. And because of its close proximity to the Houses of Parliament and MI6, it was the perfect place to house the MI5 Secret Service, ladies and gents. So, well, its original title, I guess, is the 5th branch of the Directorate of Military Intelligence in this country. And I suppose it's more responsible for our domestic, our internal spies. I always like to associate MI5 with the likes of Ethan Hunt, played by Tom Cruise, of course, in the Mission Impossible series. But we'll also be featuring MI6, which is heavily associated, of course, with James Bond, the most famous spy in the world. Now, originally it was Thames House, designed by the architect Sir Frank Baines. And he was a principal architect of the Government Office of Works, and it was constructed in around 1929. Now, as you can see, it's neoclassical in design, and probably one of the more favorite stones that were used on most of the buildings in this type of design was Portland stone. Now, on the building itself, if you look closely, we'll see some incredible sculptures by a very famous sculptor, Charles Sargent Jagger. And he was a prominent British sculptor of the 20th century. Basically, he was responsible for so many pieces of work in London, but I guess probably the most famous one is the Royal Artillery Memorial at Hyde Park. So you'll see some of his famous designs and sculptures there. It would be incredible if we could get inside, but I think you'll know, for security reasons, that's definitely highly unlikely of getting inside there. But before the Second World War, Thames House was also used as a bomb shelter. When London was being extensively bombed during World War II, I suppose the worst part of London to be hit would have been the East End and the City of London. However, Westminster didn't escape from bomb damage either. And it was used, as I said, as an air raid shelter. And the local residents were slept in the basement while bombs fell on top of them. Now, also in the 1980s, it was occupied by chemical company ICI until it was acquired by the government in the 1980s. Now, it was actually opened as MI5 on the 30th of November 1994 by the then Prime Minister, Sir John Major. And when you look closely on the building, it's the same with the likes of MI6 and the Ministry of Defence. You just see so many CCTV cameras. So always remember that when you're taking pictures of them, they're taking pictures of you, taking pictures of them. So we just got a view here of where we are. Now, I'm standing here on top of this bench here. This is Lambeth Bridge, directly in front of you, and you'll notice there, we've discussed this before, the colour of the bridge is red, and that determines the seats colours in the House of Lords. And just below it we have the House of Commons Bridge, which is Westminster Bridge, which is coloured green to represent the seats and the upholstery in the House of Commons. Now over here is another place I want to visit very shortly. You see this beautiful palace here, you guys? This is Lambeth Palace. And Lambeth Palace has been home to the Archbishop of Canterbury here in this country for over 700 years. There is a wonderful garden museum in there, and I believe there's an observation tower you can get to. Is that people up on top there of that tower? It is, and that's where I want to bring you, to give you one of the most amazing views, but lesser known ones around London. That's another day's work. We'll be going the other side of the river soon as well. But right now, I'm going to take a stroll along here. It's about a 5-6 minute walk straight down Millbank. And that's going to bring us to Tate Britain, ladies and gents. But we're coming up on one of the most famous museums in London. And this wonderful art gallery is on the former site of what was known as Millbank Prison. Now, Millbank Prison was actually opened in 1816 by Jeremy Bentham. And the design of it was quite genius, actually. And I may get this pronunciation of this wrong. Panopticon design, which consisted of a central watchtower right in the center from which a designated watcher could observe all 6 pentagon buildings that were containing the inmates. Now, prisoners in Millbank, well, they lived in subhuman conditions, I guess, is the only way to describe it. They lived in hammocks, most of them, and they worked as tailors. Now, a lot of them worked as tailors, but originally it was a female prison before they started to admit men. Now, it was used as a kind of a detention center for people that were about to be deported or sent on their way via the pier down here, and we'll be heading down there in a moment, to Australia. They were being banished from the country. Now, if some of their crimes were lesser, they were given the option to spend 5 to 7 years inside here. Now, when I was doing some research recently on Victorian prisons, I was absolutely fascinated, and the same applied to America, that at one time or another they used to serve them lobster soup inside in prison. You see, lobster, of course, was said to be the dirtiest of all the fish at the time, and oysters had a very bad reputation. Even when Dr. Samuel Johnson used to have to buy oysters for his favourite cat, Hodge, which we featured in our City of London tour, it was the food of the poor. So they were dragging on the ocean floor, the idea behind it, the worst of the ocean. So imagine getting lobster soup. Nowadays, a massive delicacy. But anyway, I digress. I'm getting back. I'm wandering a little bit today. So again, it was technically a holding facility for convicted prisoners before they were deported to Australia. Now, it opened up in 1816. It was closed in 1890. But as I said, the first prisoners were all women. And I want to show you some features around the side of the building. I can show you how it was policed and some of the former prison cells and the bars on the windows of the Tate. Now, the women themselves, and first woman arrived here on the 26th of June, 1816. And the first men arrived then in 1817. But again, sentences of 5 to 10 years were given to people as a reprieve instead of deportation, if their prisoner was expected to most likely reform, as it were. We'll just show you down here where you can see a little bit of a couple of features of the building, which show you a bygone era of this incredible place inside in Tate Britain. And you'll see here some of the bars on the windows there, and evidence of the old prison cells. So originally when it was built as well, quite like the Houses of Parliament and Westminster Abbey, the site of the land was quite marshy, almost bog-like, and that attracted an awful lot of infectious diseases. And there were several times that it was actually, the building had to be shut down because of outbreaks of cholera, particularly an epidemic swept through there in 1822 to 1823, and it was a mix of dysentery, scurvy, and depression. So when that happened, prisoners were transferred to Woolwich Prison temporarily, and each cell had its own, just a single window with a washing tub, a wooden stool, and a hammock, bedding, books, and most of them had a Bible as well. So this is actually pock damage as well from World War II, and I believe some of it is from World War I as well, which you can see on the buildings. Also, a very famous Irishman that spent time in jail here was Michael Davitt, an Irish Republican. He was briefly held here as well in Millbank Prison in 1870. Now, the term Millbank, where we are, actually comes from a medieval mill that once stood here on the riverbank. But the Tate itself stands on the it would have been 8 acres when it was first built of marshland. And it was at a time the largest prison in London when it was completed in 1821. And at its height, it could hold 1,120 prisoners. And for my Australian customers, it's actually quite fascinating to think that many ancestors of today's Australians would have began their journey from here, as nearly all male and female prisoners sentenced here would have been deported to Australia, and they would have passed through Millbank, and they were crossed over onto barges that were moored on the Thames. And I will show you where they would have passed through. And around 4,000 people a year until 1867 began their transportation in this way. Now, we're going to get close to the Morpeth Arms in just a moment, and we'll see a stone bollard there in the small garden which stood by the river steps, and that is where the prisoners would have passed through there and along a passageway from the prison itself. Now, there were also underground tunnels into the Morpeth Arms pub that were used by the wardens and were used also to transport passengers. And they had little holding cells underneath the bottom of this pub. And I'll show you that very shortly, where they kept the prisoners just prior to transportation. Also said to be one of the most haunted pubs in London. The Morpeth Arms, one of the passengers or prisoners that was awaiting deportation apparently died in there. And to this day, he still haunts the pub inside. So we'll come back to that with the Morpeth Arms. And I'm hoping they're going to let me film a little bit at least in here. But one of the most famous pubs in the area is called the Morpeth Arms. And the Morpeth Arms was a notorious pub that was used by spies, actually, because of the proximity to MI5 and MI6. And the MI6 building is directly opposite us here, right behind that white crane. And that's where we're going to be heading in that direction over Vauxhall Bridge in just a moment. And this pub that was used by the spies was built in 1845 by Paul Dangerfield. And it was originally built for the wardens of Millbank Prison. But what's fascinating about this is they have a live feed to the tunnels downstairs. Now, sometimes they'll let you access the tunnels, but the last couple of times I've asked, they said that it was being used for storage. And these tunnels underneath contained impossibly shallow cells, very low down, which were used to detain and walk prisoners before departure right across here on the River Thames, across the road. And the only bit of evidence, I will bring you over to the bollard here of the remaining Millbank prison. It's right across the road here with this bollard where they would have passed by and taken the steps down to those boats for deportation. And these tunnels were connected underneath here. The prisoners could be held in the holding cells here. Now let's see how they are about filming in here. So if you're enjoying the tour so far, go ahead and click that like and share button and help others discover this video. And for more virtual tours of London and beyond, consider subscribing to our channel. Be sure to visit our website to learn more about our in-person tours and London travel tips. We also offer live and virtual tours in cities throughout the world. You can help support this channel by donating through the thanks button or by buying your tour guide a pint or a cup of coffee. Links to do so are in the description below. Now back to the tour.
It's not possible to show you.
Unfortunately, no.
So that's the actual tunnels that are downstairs. This is a live feed to it, but they don't allow anyone down there at the moment, you guys. So this is the interior of the Morpeth Arms, and unfortunately all I could get was just a bit of footage of that live stream there, ladies and gents. But I'm going to bring you up to the spy room upstairs as well and show you some of the notorious spies that use this establishment because of its proximity to MI6. It's a beautiful place to get a bite to eat. So adorning the walls all the way up to the spy room are some of the famous spies that would have frequented the area. And we have the Cambridge spies, it says here. And Sidney Riley, the ace of spies he's called. And this is where they used to hang out, right here in the famous spying room. Here's a picture of a gentleman called Michael Straight. He was a Soviet mole. Here we have another gentleman, Harold Adrian Russell Philby, master spy and double agent. This gentleman was known as Sir Dick White, a double-cross system against Nazi Germany. This one is a picture of a gentleman called John Renstrom, who was convicted of larceny, North Shields on the 12th of the 1st, 1903, no doubt imprisoned here. And we have another one there of King Charles holding a pint here. I wonder, was he detained for any period of time? Another picture of a lady that was detained here on the 18th of the 8th, 1903 from North Shields. Her name was Susan Joyce, and she was convicted of larceny as well. So that was the most footage I could get you guys inside the Morpeth Arms. So I did my best. He did say the manager might be back, but there was a possibility he would bring me downstairs. But alas, I'm not going to hang around for 2 or 3 hours for a possibility. But next we're going to take a walk over Vauxhall Bridge, folks. And that's going to head us over to the area that was known as Vauxhall. Now, Vauxhall gets its name, we believe, from the head of King John's mercenaries. And it dates back to the 13th century. And his name was Fawkes de Broyat. Now, he owned a house in the area which he referred to as Fawkes Hall, which eventually was corrupted to Foxhall, which eventually corrupted to Vauxhall. And this lovely new development here at the Riverside Garden, we can see as well, it features one of those bollards that the prisoners would have passed before they embarked on their final journey to Australia. And the bridge directly in front of us right now is Vauxhall Bridge. And I wanted to show you, before we walk over it, a particular feature in the bridge, because you can only see it technically from this side, or if you were on a river cruise. Now, this isn't the first bridge that was on the site. The bridge we see today was designed by Alexander Binney. But the original bridge was the first iron bridge crossing on the River Thames. even of which the piers itself stood on stone, but it was the first original iron bridge. And the first stone of the original bridge was laid on the 11th of May 1811 by Lord Dundas, and he laid that stone in, he stood in at the time for the Prince Regent, who was due to lay the stone. But originally the bridge was known as Regent's Bridge. But by the time it was constructed and underway, it became known as Vauxhall Bridge. But the current bridge we're looking at right now was designed by Alexander Binney. And the new bridge was designed in 1906. Now, there was a lot of complaints about how boring the bridge actually was. So two sculptors by the name of Alfred Drury and Frederick Pomeroy were commissioned to design a series of bronze sculptures. And you'll just make them out here. Actually, it's such a shame because you can't really see them from the bridge. The best way to see them is from this side, or if you were on some form of river cruise. And on one side of the bridge, these bronze sculptures are made by Pomeroy, and they are to represent agriculture, architecture, engineering, and pottery. Whilst on the other side, the Drury side, is to represent science, fine arts, local government, and education. But there's one particular feature on the other side of the bridge that I wanted to show you. Do you ever imagine you'd see St. Paul's on a bridge? Before we head over, we'll see that bollard there you see as well. That is original to when the prisoners would have passed right by there. This beautiful Henry Moore sculpture. Now, of course, MI5 and MI6 have been featured in so many different movies. I mean, it's been featured in so many of the James Bond movies. And probably one of my favourite scenes of all time is when Dame Judi Dench is crossing the bridge and she notices the building is blown up into a massive explosion. And that was in Skyfall, I believe. And they actually recreated MI6 in Skyfall in the Pinewood Studios. A replica was made to reenact that scene. But we'll come back to that again. I'm trying to lean over the bridge here and hopefully not fall into the River Thames to see St. Paul's Cathedral and look at what she's cradling in her hand. We can just, okay, bear with me. This is awkward, but fun. Look here and we'll have a look. Here is St. Paul's Cathedral, guys, in the hands of one of these bronze statues, right here on Vauxhall Bridge. So you don't have to travel up to Ludgate Hill anymore. You can see a miniature St. Paul's on the bridge. How unique is that? It's not deadly. Love it. So in the background there, you will see Battersea Power Station. I must take a new trip down there, actually. I did do a video on it when Lift 109 opened up, but I'd like to see it again. Okay, so I've moved over to the other side of the bridge, but this is the side of MI6 at Vauxhall Cross, and it is the headquarters of the Secret Intelligence Service. It has been the headquarters of MI6 since 1994, and it was built by John Lang. The building was influenced by 1930s industrial modernist architecture. But in 1988, it was Margaret Thatcher who had the building purchased for the purpose of MI6. The building was actually purchased for 135 million, and that was just the basic site and the building itself. But a further 152.6 million was spent to build and includes services and special requirements for MI6. Now, the site is rumoured to have an underground tunnel which connects to Whitehall, which wouldn't be on the realms of possibility, considering that Whitehall is supposed to be a series of tunnels as well, connecting the likes of 10 Downing Street, Buckingham Palace, and the Ministry of Defence. So maybe they're all interconnected. Now, it's actually said that they could successfully get the King and the Prime Minister out underground in the event of any catastrophic event in this country. They could get them out underground without even coming above ground. Now, it was much controversy at the time, the amount of money that was spent on this building, but the windows are triple glazed, and I have no doubt when I am filming them, they're filming me filming them. Now, the staff amenities inside there include apparently a sports hall, a gymnasium, an aerobics class, squash court, and restaurants. And there are 2 moats around there as well that are used for protection. But of course, the moats aren't filled anymore. Now, during the Diamond Jubilee of the Queen, maybe some of you remember there was a flotilla of barges went all the way up to Tower Bridge from here, and it came all the way up the river. Now, that particular day was a horrendous day. We already featured Gloriana, the barge they use. That's permanently moored at St. Catherine Docks, and it's a stunning barge. But when the barge passed here, apparently they played the James Bond theme, much to the amusement of the Queen. The Royal Philharmonic Orchestra was stationed here, and they played the James Bond theme as she passed. So, of course, it's largely associated with all the James Bond movies. It's been attacked in several Bond movies. We mentioned Skyfall already. It was attacked in The World Is Not Enough, and also Spectre. But again, this MI6 building, in the Skyfall movie, when the building Dame Judi Dench gets out of her car on the bridge, and she sees the building explode, that actually, a 50-foot high model of this building was built especially in Pinewood Studios for that iconic scene. Now, we're going to make our way, because I'm thinking which direction will we go. This is our next building I wanted to show you. This is the new home of the American Embassy in London. Now, the original American Embassy was actually in Grosvenor Square. Now, there's a great story attached to it, because the Grosvenor Square Embassy was on the land that was owned by the Duke of Westminster, which we've spoken about several times. The Duke of Westminster, also head of the Grosvenor family, was approached by a president, one of the presidents of the US, to buy the land. And the president offered him basically a blank check, and he outright refused. And apparently, he agreed to the sale of the land, but of course the president needed the land for diplomatic immunity and foreign diplomacy. And I mean, it had to be technically American soil. But the Grosvenor family, it's not like they were short of a few shillings. They didn't need the money. And I think he made him a proposition that if they gave back the lands they stole in the colonies. So the American Embassy said that that was preposterous. But anyway, it was eventually moved out from that beautiful location in Mayfair, and it was taken over and rebuilt. And the embassy you see down here was officially opened in 2017. So this is located technically now in what's called Nine Elms, and it is the largest embassy in Western Europe. It's been open to the public since 2017 and was formally opened on the 16th of January 2018. Now, Donald Trump was invited to open it, but he was absolutely horrified that they left the incredible acreage and site of Mayfair for the embassy, and he refused to come to open it. So this embassy, it costs over £1 billion and has over 800 staff. The Winfield House, which we featured on our Regent's Park tour, is the ambassadorial home of the American ambassador to the US here in London. And if you saw that property, we'll try and pick it up from our other video that I did that time of our walk along Regent's Canal. But some of these properties are probably some of the most exclusive and most expensive in London. And these beautiful restaurants are fabulous places to dine, particularly in the summertime when the weather is good. I have friends that rent down here, and it's pretty extortionate. And look at these beautiful riverside properties, folks. I mean, you're in the heart of central London. Now, just as we're heading over there, I just wanted to give you a quick reminder, you guys, that the season is starting very soon. And I know a lot of you are planning your trips to London. And thank you most sincerely for all your inquiries about the private tours. I've booked quite a few of you in, and I'm looking forward to meeting you all. It's going to be exciting, but we're also going to be running our public tours. Now, you might have noticed the company has gone from free tours by foot to tours by foot. So we're gone into the paid tour model, folks. So I am going to be showing you what tour I will be conducting on Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays in the summer. Now, because you're fans of the channel, I will be giving you an exclusive code to join us on those tours where you'll get a discount on your tickets. Thank you very much, Sinead. Yes, you're more than welcome, ladies and gents. And that code, quite simply, will be Sinead 10. So this week, what I'm going to do is I'm going to film our London in a day and the top 10 things you are going to see in London in a day with Sinead. So I'm so excited to meet you on private, but also on public tours. Now, it's quite important to us that you get the best experience on those tours. So we're going to limit the numbers. We're going to cap the numbers on Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. So this is beautiful. Look at this gorgeous building, which costs 1 billion to build. It's over 800 staff. And trust me when I tell you, massive security. Massive security in there. I've witnessed that firsthand myself. Look at that, isn't it beautiful? Embassy of the United States of America. Right there. There's one other feature I want to show you in just a moment around the back, which has nothing to do with the embassy. Let's walk around here. I'm sure I'll be approached in a moment asking me what I'm filming, but look at the architecture of the building. So it's a rather distinctive model, the building itself, as you can see. And we're going to head right around here and we'll see exactly what I want to show you up here. And if you look straight ahead, up on top here, look at the swimming pool. This is Sky Pool. Unfortunately, not open to the public, my loves. You have to be a resident of either of those buildings. And that is the only swimming pool in the sky in London. I'll have to come down here in the summertime to show you being used. But again, you guys, only accessible to the residents of the building. Right, ladies and gentlemen, that's me signing out. As close as I can be to the United States of America. Ladies and gents, thank you as ever for watching. See you soon on my new series of London in a Day. That will be coming up next week, so stay tuned. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Be sure and tell me what your favorite part of this video was today, and particularly what your favorite art was. And I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for joining me. And if you'd like to buy me a gin and tonic, ladies and gents, I'm more than happy to accept. My Buy Me a Coffee is featured below, as is my PayPal. Thanks as ever for watching, ladies and gents. Sinead, signing out here in London in front of the American Embassy. See you soon, guys.